In 2001, a Chicago man named Arooj Khan hit a scratch-off jackpot worth $1 million. He never got to spend a single dollar of it. Within 24 hours of finding out his check was ready to be released, he was dead. The official cause of death was later changed to cyanide poisoning. To this day, his case remains one of the strangest unsolved mysteries in American lottery history. That's not an isolated horror story. It's part of a much darker pattern that follows sudden wealth all over the world. A pattern most people never hear about until it's too late. Here's a question for you. If a massive amount of money landed in your bank account tomorrow morning, who is the first person you think would try to take advantage of you? A stranger, a friend, or someone in your own family? Type your honest answer in the comments, because after this video, you might rethink that answer completely. Before we continue, if true stories like this keep you up at night thinking about human nature and money, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and send this to someone who's always said winning the lottery would fix all their problems. They need to see what's coming. Winning a jackpot feels like the finish line. In reality, for a shocking number of winners, it's the starting gun for one of the most dangerous chapters of their entire life. Today, we're going deep into the real, documented stories of lottery winners whose fortunes collapse shockingly fast, sometimes within days, sometimes within months, and almost always because of the same handful of mistakes repeating themselves over and over again across completely different states, countries, and decades. Let's start with William Bud Post from Erie County, Pennsylvania. In 1988, Bud won $16.2 million in the Pennsylvania lottery. On paper, that should have set him up for life. Instead, within days of the win becoming public, his brother reportedly hired a hitman in an attempt to get a share of the winnings, believing Bud would be killed and the money would pass to the family. His own girlfriend at the time sued him for a portion of the jackpot, claiming she was entitled to it under an old promise made before he ever bought the ticket. A judge actually ruled in her favor, forcing Bud to hand over roughly a third of his winnings almost immediately. Within about a year, he had lost control of large portions of his fortune to lawsuits, bad investments, and family conflict. He eventually filed for bankruptcy. Bud Post was later quoted saying that winning the lottery was the worst thing that ever happened to him. The worst thing that ever happened to him after winning $16 million. So, now let's talk about Evelyn Adams from New Jersey, because her story sounds almost too strange to be real, except it's fully documented. Evelyn won the New Jersey lottery not once, but twice, in 1985 and again in 1986, bringing in a combined total of roughly $5.4 million. 2 lottery wins. Most people would call that the luckiest run of their entire life. But within just a few years, Evelyn had lost almost all of it. She later admitted publicly that she gave large amounts of money away to family members, made poor gambling decisions in Atlantic City casinos, and simply never had a real financial plan in place to protect what she'd won. By the mid-1990s, she was reportedly living in a trailer, and she later said in her own words that she wished she had never won at all. Here's where I want to give you my honest take on this pattern, because I think most people misunderstand what's actually happening in these stories. It's easy to sit back and judge someone like Evelyn Adams or Bud Post and say they were careless or foolish with money. But if you actually study the psychology behind sudden wealth, you'll notice something disturbing. These weren't unusually reckless people before they won. They were completely ordinary people who were never taught how to defend themselves against the wave of pressure, manipulation, and emotional chaos that follows a massive win. If you ask me, the real villain in most of these stories isn't the winner's poor decision-making. It's the complete absence of any financial or psychological preparation for a life-changing event that almost nobody is ever trained to handle. Now let's go back to Arooj Khan, because his story deserves more detail, and it's genuinely chilling. In June of 2012, Arooj Khan bought a scratch-off ticket at a 7-Eleven in Chicago and discovered he'd won $1 million. He chose the lump sum payout, which after taxes came out to around $425,000. Just one day after that check was processed and ready for him to collect, Khan suddenly collapsed and died at his home. At first, doctors ruled it as death from natural causes, believed to be related to heart issues. But a family member requested further toxicology testing, and months later, the medical examiner shockingly reversed the ruling. Arooj Khan had died from a lethal dose of cyanide. To this day, no one has ever been charged in connection with his death, and the case remains officially unsolved. Whether or not the murder was directly tied to his lottery win has never been proven in court. But the timing, one single day after his winnings became available, is impossible to ignore. This case represents the most extreme version of a pattern we've seen throughout lottery history. Sudden wealth doesn't just attract opportunists looking for a loan. In the most extreme and rare cases, it has attracted people willing to do far worse. Let's shift now to a case that shows a completely different kind of danger, one that has nothing to do with theft or violence, and everything to do with secrecy. Denise Rossi from California won $1.3 million in the California lottery in 1996. Here's where it gets interesting. Just 11 days after claiming her winnings, Denise filed for divorce from her husband of 25 years, and she never told him about the jackpot. She kept the win completely hidden throughout the entire divorce proceedings, walking away with the full amount while her husband had no idea it even existed. Years later, her ex-husband discovered what had happened, and he took the case back to court. Because California is a community property state, meaning lottery winnings during a marriage are legally considered joint property, a judge ruled that Denise had committed fraud by concealing the asset during the divorce. As a penalty, the court awarded her ex-husband the entire $1.3 million, 100% of it, as punishment for her deception. Denise didn't lose her fortune to a stranger, a scammer, or bad luck. She lost every single dollar because of her own decision to hide the truth from the legal system. Now, let's bring back the story of Jack Whittaker for a moment, because we've referenced him before, but there's a detail in his story that most people skip over, and it's important. Jack won $314 million in the West Virginia Powerball drawing back in 2002, one of the largest jackpots in American history at that time. Within a short period after his win became public, Jack was targeted repeatedly by people looking to take advantage of him. His briefcase, containing over $500,000 in cash, was stolen from his vehicle while he was visiting a strip club, a habit he developed after the win. On multiple separate occasions, large sums of cash were stolen from him in different locations. His financial and personal life spiraled so quickly that within just a handful of years, his marriage collapsed, and tragically, his granddaughter, who had been given lavish amounts of money and freedom after the win, died from a drug overdose. Jack Whittaker later said publicly that he wished he had torn up the winning ticket the moment he realized what it was going to cost him. Here's another piece of my perspective on all of this, and I think it ties every single one of these stories together. People assume the danger after winning the lottery comes from external threats, thieves, scammers, con artists. And yes, that danger is very real. But looking closely at these cases, I believe the more common and more destructive danger actually comes from inside a winner's own circle, and inside their own decision-making in that first critical window of time. Bud Post's own brother targeted him. Evelyn Adams gave money away without a plan. Denise Rossi's own secrecy destroyed her financially. Jack Whittaker's own habits after the win contributed to the chaos that followed. In almost every documented case of a lottery fortune collapsing quickly, the fastest, most damaging decisions were made by the winners themselves, or by people who were already inside their trusted circle before the money ever arrived. Now, to be fair, and to give this story some balance, not every jackpot winner ends up in a tragedy. Sandra Hayes from Missouri was part of a group of co-workers who split a $224 million Powerball jackpot back in 2006. Unlike so many of the stories we've covered, Sandra approached her win with caution from day one. She sought legal and financial advice almost immediately. She avoided flashy spending and public displays of her new wealth. Over a decade later, she has spoken publicly about maintaining financial stability, describing a life built on discipline rather than impulse. Her story exists in the same statistical pool as Bud Post and Evelyn Adams. Same country, same era, same life-changing amount of money. And yet her outcome couldn't be more different. That difference alone tells you everything you need to know about how much control winners actually have over what happens next, even when it doesn't feel that way in the emotional chaos of the moment. So what actually separates a story like Sandra Hayes from a story like Bud Post or Evelyn Adams? Based on everything we've covered, the pattern becomes pretty clear. The winners who kept their fortunes moved slowly and quietly in the beginning. Instead of announcing everything to everyone immediately, they brought in professional legal and financial guidance before making commitments to family, friends, or new relationships. They protected the legal documentation of their win from day one. And critically, they resisted the emotional pressure to give, lend, or promise money before they had a real plan in place to protect what they'd won. The winners who lost everything, by contrast, almost always skipped every single one of those steps. They trusted too quickly. They spent too fast. They hid the truth instead of confronting it honestly. And in the most extreme and tragic cases, the people closest to them turned out to be the most dangerous threat of all. If there's one lingering thought I want to leave you with today, it's this. Money itself doesn't ruin people. What ruins people is being handed an enormous amount of it, with absolutely no warning about what's coming next, no guidance on how to protect it, and no understanding of how quickly trust can be weaponized against you. Every single story we covered today started the exact same way, with someone feeling like the luckiest person alive. And for most of them, that feeling didn't even last a year. If this video opened your eyes to something you never really thought about before, make sure you hit that like button right now. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next deep dive into real money mysteries and true financial case studies. And share this with someone who's always joked about knowing exactly what they'd do if they won big. Because after this, they might realize winning is only half the story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.